Hi everyone, Vamsi here. I just wanted to make a quick video talking about Generation Zero, this idea that I just heard of this morning from the Impact Theory podcast where Tom Bilyeu was interviewing Bryan Johnson, and they basically talked about Bryan's blueprint health plan, the way that he's been combating aging in his own body and sharing that data with the world. Him and his team, led by Dr. Oliver Zolman. Bryan mentioned something that I hadn't seen in his other videos, which was this idea of Generation Zero that I think his son Talmage came up with. The idea behind it is, why not an entire generation that's following Zeroth principled thinking? And Zero principled thinking is this idea of transcending dimensions. And it does remind me also of OpenAI Five, the Dota 2 AI, that was basically beating pros. Even though the AI were not connected, they could not share information with each other. They were just doing completely non-traditional things that were working and beating professionals who had been playing this game for over 10 years and who had explored so much of the nuance, but it was innovating, using trees and tree lines and doing all this innovative stuff that we had never even considered.
Pass bounces out onto No-Tail, stun as well, out onto the slug, triple kill for the OpenAI Viper. Thompson, he's desperately looking for this Crystal Maiden, but the movement's here with the Shadow Amulet, dancing herself away, utilizing the invis to make sure that Thompson cannot get that final hit on her, continuing to use the Amulet, getting away out of this. Thompson, can he find this? He does get the vision for the Assassinate, but there's the disable, the stun comes out for the cast, cancelling the Assassinate, the Crystal Maiden kept safe and alive. To hold Assassinate will not get the kill off, and now again the CM goes for the ult, and they do have the disable. Hex comes out from No-Tail, they'll kill off the Crystal Maiden, but OpenAI Viper diving past the tower on towards top of the Sven, coming back in on minimal HP to throw that start 15 minutes in, taking a barracks, an incredibly fast timing here from the AI. As the Ancient will fall, and that is GG, game over. OpenAI taking game 2, taking the series 2-0. As a player of Dota 2, as a professional, you watch how OpenAI just absolutely crushed.
I just wanted to reflect on a few questions about Generation Zero and consider what might the first cohort of Generation Zero look like. Because it's very clear to me that a progressive generation must necessarily not be built on authority. It cannot be led by authority, because authority stifles innovation, stifles progress, stifles individual thinking, and we need individual thinking. We need diversity, right? We need lots of different ideas, and we need to test them, and we need to see what works. Or as Ray Dalio likes to say, we need an idea meritocracy, where the best ideas win. He didn't want an autocracy where he was leading alone, nor did he want a democracy where everyone has an equal vote, which doesn't make sense because everybody has different knowledge, different specialties, and different interests. So ultimately, some people are more primed to make better decisions in certain areas, while other people are more primed to make better decisions in their own fields of specialty. So how do you bring together a group of specialists in a generation, say Generation Zero, in a way where they can solve complex problems together, but also redefine what the problems are as a whole? Because to be Generation Zero also means that they need to identify targets that as we know of, they don't exist. They need to create new targets that are better targets than the ones that we currently have. Bryan Johnson likes to often quote Arthur Schopenhauer, philosopher, who said something like, talent hits the target we can see, genius hits the target we can't see. So Generation Zero would need to be filled with independent thinkers who do not want to be under an authority, who are autonomous, who are exploring on their own, but also who want to be part of this community of like-minded explorers, because then they can collaborate and share data. And I think one other key principle of Generation Zero will need to be a positive sum mindset. And I've argued for this for years, and I'm so happy to see that Bryan Johnson demonstrates this in the way that he lives and he acts. He understands by sharing his data freely, by doing all these things and then showing the world everything, knowing that he wants to actually foster the entire industry, the entire competitive spirit. He would rather up the bar for the entire field than worry about leading the nascent field when it barely exists, right? He's creating a new field of rejuvenation athletics, but he's also saying, here's everything I'm doing. If you want to beat me, then beat me fair and square, right? Like, use the data, use the science, take these measurements, and beat me. And I am pretty sure he would actually love to be beat on those metrics. He would love to have someone else discover a better way to reverse their aging and to be healthy, because that pushes the whole field forward. That's an innovation. And then he can try to beat that, right? I love the competitive spirit between him and Oliver and him and his sons, and they're all trying to improve their bodies and compete on various metrics. Actually, one moment that comes to mind is when Oliver and Bryan were comparing certain metrics about their lung capacity, and Oliver was saying how Bryan is better at one part of lung capacity, but then Oliver is better at a different part. So they're both roughly even, but in different ways. So they're both trying to compete and build up to where they can actually be better than each other in all of the facets of lung capacity. And they're breaking that down by all the 78 organs. So that just all makes me really excited for what the future of human health can hold. And not just human health, but all of human existence. Because by taking the mind out of the equation, what Bryan Johnson has done is an example of Zeroth principle thinking. And by its very nature, we don't know, we can't predict what future Generation Zero discoveries or inventions will look like. It might be it'll be a completely different mode of living in some facet of life or in all facets of life. It'll be an entire redefinition of the way we exist. And I think that's highly exciting. Now, I know some people, for whatever reason, their visceral reaction seems to be one of fear, mistrust, doubt, anxiety. For me, it's more like excitement, aspiration, wonder. This actually reminds me of some guy on YouTube who had made a video about getting ChatGPT to spend his money for him. He gave ChatGPT access to his finances, and ChatGPT began optimizing some of his purchases, and it ended up saving him not a lot of money, but a little bit of money. And probably it also gave him a better awareness of how he was spending money, which is always useful. Also mentioned this idea of a generation that lives together. Living together can be done in many different ways today, right? It doesn't need to all be in one house. It could be a community. It could be a neighborhood. It could be done digitally, like Estonia just recently implemented a digital membership, a kind of digital citizenship. So that's already being innovated on. I can definitely see values in living within physical proximity, just because you get to see the same people, you have these serendipitous interactions that you can't really engineer for. But by living together, you are engineering for it in a way. You're creating this unplanned bumping into each other and conversations about mutually valuable topics, whether it's health, innovation, whatever it might be. In a sense, like a startup incubator, but for human experience rather than just for business. But the cool thing is, like, any of these projects that involve redefining human existence to make things better will ultimately also be good startup ideas, because startups are great at being disruptive, right? And what is Bryan Johnson doing if not disrupting the assumption that many of us have that our mind plays a vital role in our decision making? Because he's just taken his mind out of his decision making when it comes to health. When it comes to business and other things, he is keeping his mind in play. His mind actually has to worry about less to do with health and everything else, so it can actually make better decisions on business. More of its energy can go towards that. And he doesn't have to burden himself with day-to-day decisions of what should I eat, when should I exercise, and so on. All of that is automatic. Not worrying about what I feel short-term, but caring more about the results long-term, the things that I can measure, even the intangibles. Even if I just feel more energy, that's probably a positive sign. That's something I can work with to push myself to implement better and better habits over time. So yeah, that's all.